Do you know that 73% of customers agree that a bad restroom experience in a restaurant will impact their willingness to return? Torque Sustainable Hygiene Solutions improve operational efficiency for a better guest experience and better business.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Extra Serving, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief of NRN, joined by my colleague, executive editor Alicia Kelso. Alicia, I said the word right before record. I am hungry. We're recording this at lunchtime. Why did we do that to ourselves?
Well, because I wanted you to complain about how hungry you were.
All you did it for. I will tell you, in less than an hour, I am meeting a friend at a new taqueria that I am very excited about. So I will be stuffing my face with tacos at the end of this.
And margaritas?
Well, it's Monday at 1 o'clock, Alicia. I'm not sure margarita is the right way to go, but it is a short week. It's a holiday week. Happy early 4th of July to everybody. But we'll see. I don't know. Taking care of 3 children. If I came back 2 margaritas deep, which let's face it, it wouldn't be 1 margarita, Alicia. If I came back 2 margaritas deep, I think Katie would still heap the children upon me and say, you figure out what to do. I'm going to go have my own margarita alone. So anyway. We'll see. But tacos, relevant, Alicia, to our first conversation here, and that is Taco Bell announced that, like the rest of the restaurant industry, they think beverage is the future. Mas Café, of course, their little, I don't want to call it a sister concept because it's a little bit different than that, but their branded beverage platform, Mas Café, is going to be expanded in a big way. They say 30 locations will have Mas Café by the end of the year. They hope and dream of beverage being $5 billion in sales by 2030. This is according to, of course, a story you wrote, Alicia. Tell me more about this commitment from Taco Bell.
Yeah, I don't think, given the coverage of Taco Bell really since the beginning of last year, the beginning of 2024, when they had their first Live Mas Live event out in Vegas, you could sense that beverages were becoming a bigger part of the conversation. And it was sometime back in the first half of 2024 where Chief Marketing Officer Taylor Montgomery said they want beverages to be as quote, as iconic as their food. Now we're talking about the crunch wrap here. Taco Bell's food is pretty iconic. You don't get that stuff anywhere else. So it was a really bold statement. It's one that we've referenced often as they continue to innovate their beverage line. And then, of course, in December, this beverage conversation really came to a head when Taco Bell debuted its first Live Mas Café in a single restaurant in San Diego in partnership with Diversified Restaurant Group, which is one of their biggest franchisees. Diversified has done a bunch of innovative things for Taco Bell, including debuting cantinas, for example, just a really cool partnership between corporate and franchisee over there. Live Mas Café, as you said, it's not a sister concept. It's more, think of it like a McCafe line in the restaurant. But it does have a separate section with like a counter, separate menus. They've got employees over there that they call, quote, Bellristas, so it's separate enough to merit, this entire separate conversation. And then, they took me back to their second annual Live Mas Café in early March in New York City this year. And executives said that they wanted to get Live Mas Café across the country. It's about 7,500 restaurants. They're taking a big step toward that with 30 new cafes opening within existing restaurants by the end of this year. And that $5 billion mark that you mentioned, Sam, I think it's worth highlighting and sort of kind of double clicking on, because you think about that would put Taco Bell's beverage sales, just the beverage sales, on par with system-wide sales at Raising Cane's, at their sister chain KFC, and at Olive Garden. And of course, those chains are nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Taco Bell ended 2024. Now, this is per Technomic data, ended 2024 with a just above 16.2 billion. So that would be, you can do the math. That's like more than a fourth, I think.
Yeah, I'll say yes. We're word people. It's much, actually, might be closer to a third.
Okay, see? I'll trust you more than me for
People,
sure.
again,
Pay me to write. But, what's really interesting is, throughout parent company Yum Brands earnings calls, they've talked a little bit about how this cafe has gone. Early days, of course, they still just have the one open, but that one has driven a 40% sales lift in that location, selling an average of 300 specialty beverages a day. Now, you and I know what the draw is with beverages from an operator standpoint. They're not that hard operationally to execute, and they are high profit margin. What's not to like about it? Plus, of course, it's meeting consumer demand right now. Consumers are proving time and time again in earnest right now that they want all kinds of beverages, whether it's espresso based, energy drinks, boba, everything. We're seeing it everywhere. I never thought I'd see this much creativity on the beverage side from a non-alcoholic standpoint. And it's pretty spectacular to see. Of course, Taco Bell is not the only brand that's jumping into this, but they're doing it with significant intention per last week's announcement.
And it's fascinating because the investment in this and these bold proclamations of eventually getting to all 7,500 Taco Bell locations, that's not a, hey, we're putting out a new product and seeing where this goes. That is this is here to stay. This is going to be a big deal for us and obviously for the rest of the industry. So we're going big on it. I have some questions, of course. I mean, part of me wonders about the efficiency of having a Bellrista, dedicated to each restaurant. Having its own section within the restaurant is interesting. Now, to be fair, this is not a soda fountain we're talking about here. This is obviously a little bit more of a beefed up kind of beverage operation where you do need more equipment, you do need more product. So a distinct little area in the kitchen would make sense. But one of the reasons why I wonder about sort of the operational elements of having a dedicated employee, a dedicated space is Taco Bell near me, usually nobody inside, all through the drive-thru. And Taco Bell, like most fast food, you're talking about a 70%, I'm sure, at least, business going around the drive-thru. So I wonder, putting it into one San Diego location, which I'm sure was very strategically determined based on foot traffic, based on beverage sales in the area, demographics, et cetera, et cetera. But when you blow that out to all locations, what does that look like? I don't know. When they get to that point, years and years in the future, they've probably got a good handle on operational complexity of beverage, what customers actually want out of their Taco Bell beverages, et cetera. Now, the last point I'd make too, to your point, to see where beverage has gotten, we see what McDonald's went through. You and I both called it that McDonald's, we expect by probably the end of the year, if not next year, to have a significant beverage rollout based on what they learned through Cosmics. So they're going through it too. Wendy's has made some commitments to their own beverage innovation.
Yep.
You see.
I just posted something about Whataburger coming out with premium beverages just today.
This is not a fluke. This is not a coincidence.
No.
Everybody sees this trend happening right now in beverage and is committing to it in a very big way. Taco Bell has this opportunity, which is with the agua frescas, right? These refreshers, refrescas, am I getting that right? It is distinct from some other brands because I think, McDonald's, a lot of coffee beverages, which is what's going to be able to put it up against the Dutch Bros and the Seven Brews of the world. But Taco Bell, I don't know. And you see it too with the Baja Blast. Like they occupy a little bit of a unique niche with beverage, which I think could be an opportunity for them.
Right. I agree. And I think that's how they lean into menu innovation in general is, when I went out to their headquarters last summer and talked to several members of their innovation team, their priority, their North Star when they come up with a new menu item is to make sure that they, hook their anchor on that differentiator that is Taco Bell. So, their churro chillers, it's a delicious shape. It's got little churro pieces. Yeah. Taco Bell can get away with that.
Yeah.
And the Baja Blast, I've got a midnight Baja Blast coming out toward the end of the summer. Taco Bell is probably one of the very few that can get away with that because that's their drink. And so to your point, when they go all in on this beverage angle of their business, they are able to do it in a unique way that I think is going to drive at the very least significant trial.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Last point I'll make too here is there's always sort of like trying to see this in the wild, right? I'm sure you have this too, Alicia, which is like when we see trends come from a lot further away, obviously, than consumers do. We know things about the restaurant industry far in advance, just from the nature of our work. And I had this fascinating moment this weekend where I was at a family reunion and my cousin brought up, without me prompting, about dirty sodas because of the Mormon Wives show. She had seen Swig and Mormon Wives. I think Swig's like an official thing on that show now. And I guess the point being is that, like, even beyond Mormon Wives, you see pop culture. This stuff is making its way into pop culture now. So I think, again, this is no coincidence. This is no fluke. The sales trends have gone toward more interest in beverage. Obviously, it's fueling brands like those coffee players. But when you start to see this stuff really seep into pop culture, that's why McDonald's and Wendy's and Taco Bell are hitting this hard, is because it's mainstream, it's in the zeitgeist. Now, to be fair, 2 to 3 years from now, that could be hey, remember when beverage was big for a little bit? But I don't think, McDonald's and Taco Bell are too smart to bet this big on something that they think will blow up or pop in a couple of years. Beverage is not just this is not a poke bowl we're talking about. Beverage is obviously something we all consume beverage every day, much like we consume food. And so there's a ton of opportunity.
Maybe. I think the wild card here to maybe poke a hole in that small hole, potential hole, is that healthy conversation that we've been having.
Totally. Absolutely. Because a lot of beverages that we're talking about are definitely not healthy. Dirty sodas, nope, not healthy.
Those churro chillers are so good, but every time I'm like, okay, I can't have any more calories for the next 4 days.
Basically, a milkshake. All right, speaking of McDonald's, we got to talk about the fact that last week McDonald's and Krispy Kreme announced that they were parting ways. What we thought was a match made in heaven is no longer. Now, it seems like this was amicable, but the details of this, of course, Krispy Kreme sees in McDonald's a partner that can get them up to 13,000 plus locations in the U.S., 13,000 plus access points for Krispy Kreme donuts. Of course, that seems like it could be a no-brainer. McDonald's sees this opportunity to diversify its breakfast product or snack products in offering Krispy Kreme donuts without having to invest in much new equipment or anything operationally. But it just didn't work out quite as either side expected. Why is that, Alicia?
I mean, I could point to several reasons just based on personal experience, because if you'll recall, this test started in my home market. So I had a kind of a unique perspective, and I thought it came out of the gate pretty strong. And in doing so, there were window clings, a lot of real estate on the menu boards outside. You didn't need to be, a restaurant journalist to know that this partnership was taking place. As that was late 2022. I think I've told you on this podcast and otherwise, there's a McDonald's directly across the street from both my kid's pool where he swims and his ice arena where he plays hockey. And so that gives me an opportunity to go check this out a couple times a week and just kind of get a pulse on what's going on. I started noticing probably in late 23, early 24, that marketing collateral was starting to dissipate a little bit. Where by the end, I went a couple weeks ago and it was just gone altogether. If you didn't know about this partnership, there was no opportunity to know about this partnership. That was issue number one. Issue number two is oftentimes there was such an inconsistency in supply where I would go and order these donuts in between my kids' morning hockey games at like 8 a.m. and they'd already be sold out. So I'm not sure if that they had enough supply, if it was just so popular that it was selling out. At 8 a.m, I find that hard to believe, but whatever. To me, the biggest issue with this partnership from a consumer side, and I've showed you these receipts before, they were charging about $13 for 6-pack, which is about the same that Krispy Kreme charges for a 6-pack at their shops, but this was not an at the shop experience where Walmart, Kroger, those DFDs delivered, those were about $9. So they were charging the same at McDonald's for the hot and now experience where the light came on, and it's just a different experience. It should have been marked around the same as, the Walmarts and Kroger's, in my opinion. I was not getting that same experience when the light came on, the hot and now light came on. So that was a 40% markup. And I thought that was a little, it just didn't make sense to me. So like I said, from a consumer standpoint, now from a business standpoint, it was a little bit shocking when I started going down the rabbit hole of the timeline last week, from that test in October 2022 through Krispy Kreme's first quarter earnings call, when Krispy Kreme mentioned that they were going to pause this rollout in Q2 because they had to figure out how to make it profitable.
Yeah.
Even at this 40+% markup, they couldn't figure out how to make it profitable because obviously it requires delivery, logistics, things that they just didn't have in place yet. That, by the way, Krispy Kreme was investing a whole lot of money to ramp up, to get into place for this really ambitious rollout. We're talking 13,600 plus restaurants by the end of 2026. So when I was going through these Krispy Kreme's earnings calls throughout the past 2 years that this test has been into play, and there's investments left and right. I think the story that might be getting lost here is I'm assuming that a lot of people probably lost their job.
Yeah.
Because of, this was a big, I would say Hail Mary, but it was they were shooting for the fences on this 13, like to your point, that point of access, ramping up all of their delivery and manufacturing, production, logistics to support 13,600 McDonald's restaurants, just gone. And I think that's the bummer here. I wanted them to make it work. I thought it was an interesting fit, two strong brands with strong brand equity. McDonald's, folded their pastry line about 2023. So but then again, going through that timeline, it was a little shocking because at the beginning of this year, there was still a lot of optimism to get to 6,000 by the end of this year. So somebody was, I don't want to say embellishing, but something wasn't adding up here.
Well, you have to imagine too, when this partnership was consummated, you have to imagine that the expectation was the economy is going to be getting better. Things will be rosier. And it just isn't the case now. And so not only are consumers pulling back on restaurant spend in general, but I have to imagine, that luxury of, donuts delivered to my house or grabbing a 6-pack of donuts while I'm at McDonald's. Like, it seems like that's probably just a luxury right now that consumers are like, yeah, I'm not, like, especially if they have a bad experience like you've had where the quality just doesn't meet, the expectation, then it's not really a good time for something like that. I can't imagine too, it's a coincidence that this happened, a week after Krispy Kreme fully divested from Insomnia cookies. Imagine there's a lot of soul searching there. There's a lot of trying to figure out, hey, what are we? Who are we wanting to be? Because when they partnered with McDonald's, it was, let's give more people access to Krispy Kreme donuts. And, in 2022, that was a conversation we were having a lot. Food as access point. Subway was talking about vending machines. We were all thinking, post-COVID and in the land of virtual brands, like, oh, all that really matters now is press the button on your phone and get food as quick as possible. That's what matters. And so when you think about it that way, suddenly a network of 13,000 plus McDonald's at your fingertips, well, that makes a lot of sense because, hey, there's our access point right there. But Krispy Kreme must have realized at some point, hey, what makes us special is that hot, warm, that hot, ready now donut, that light going on, the experience of that, no doubt, but just like the high quality donut, not the stale donut that's been sitting there for a while. So point is like, I think they must be realizing, hey, let's like refocus so that we're emphasizing the Krispy Kreme experience and the high quality expectation, which when we're distracted by what are we doing with the cookie brand, what are we doing with McDonald's, I think it's just pulling them in too many different directions. I think they said they want to focus now on more high volume access points rather than the sort of scattershot approach that McDonald's was representing. So perhaps that means, more grocery investment, which of course has worked really well for them. Maybe it means opening more shops too. I don't know, but this was kind of a whiff. It was a big swing, and I respect big swings, but
agreed.
Unfortunately, this one was a whiff.
I agree, but you kind of expect seeing Krispy Kremes in Kroger when you go shopping, right?
Correct.
And I don't know if that's the same for McDonald's. So that's where the marketing dissipation is a big head scratcher for me.
For sure. All right. Last but not least, we have to touch on some new data that came out. Alicia, you wrote a story referencing to some data from Black Box Intelligence that found that traffic and sales are down at restaurants in areas with a high population of Hispanic residents since President Trump's immigration policies have come into effect. Now, we have to say at the outset two things. First off, of course, just you guys know this. You don't come here for politics, and we don't talk politics, but this is a very big one that we will delve into because obviously it's impacting your team. And according to Black Box, it's apparently probably affecting your sales and your traffic. But also touching on this because the state of the immigration policy is still in limbo as we speak. As at the moment, the Trump administration is not exempting hospitality workers and restaurant workers as he briefly did 2 weeks ago. That could change. We don't know. We'll get into some action items after this. But first off, Alicia, what is the data from Black Box Intelligence telling us?
Yeah, so I want to make sure that we clarify that Black Box Intelligence looked specifically at Mexican Hispanic populations, not non-Mexican Hispanic populations, to derive this data. And what was interesting to me, Sam, is when I was going through it, came on they released this data on the heels of a Washington Post report that showed businesses across the board that serve large immigrant populations were also experiencing sales and traffic declines. And the Washington Post referenced several data firms to support their reporting. So this is corroborated. Let's just put that out there. And what Black Box found specific to the restaurant industry is that it generated modest same-store sales gains in May, but in those zip codes with a heavy Mexican population, it was significantly underperforming national trends. And it has been that way since basically late October. And further, about 80% of zip codes with a high Mexican population have lower than the national average in traffic at restaurants. And I think that is worth noting because we already have some traffic pressures in this industry. And so those zip codes, again, with high, Mexican demographics are experiencing even more softness on traffic and sales, again, since late October, early November-ish. I'm going to reach out to Black Box Intelligence today to see if there's more data for some of these markets with high immigrant populations that are not high Hispanic, non-Mexican Hispanic, like Miami, maybe Chicago. See if there are similar trends. But right now, Black Box Intelligence, that data is focusing specifically on Mexican Hispanic zip codes. And this is what they're showing. And I think because of the reporting from the Washington Post and other publications and other data firms, I don't know if this is usually surprising. I think there's a fear here as ICE ramps up deportation. We've seen some goals in place that the goal is to get 2,000, a day. And so, it's just something worth noting of. Now, when we have an industry with almost 25% of our workforce that is, an immigrant, then we get into the added challenge. We've got sales and traffic pressure over here from the customers. Is this going to impact people showing up for work? That is not what this report has. I don't have opinions on that because I don't have, firm data on it, but it is, I think, something worth asking and worth looking at as these other data points come out about sales and traffic losses.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, again, I think there are some action items here. And again, to clarify, whether you're right or left and whether you agree with the immigration policies from the current administration, I think important here, if you're a restaurant operator, to Alicia's point, 25% of this industry is the workforce is made up of immigrants. This is, if you just business sense, this is not good for the immigrant population, for workers to be deported. There is a path to figuring immigration out for your restaurant, whether that's a more conservative or liberal leaning, that would be better for your business, I think. And so to clarify, we think you should talk with your representatives, but also this associations here are a really good partner to have in this. The state associations, the national restaurant associations, they're all working hard on this because, again, there was talk at some point about the administration exempting farm workers, hospitality workers. They then came back on that. It seems like now, Alicia, it seems like now I think the best that the restaurant industry could hope for is that they make that exemption again, that they put that in place. Because unfortunately, the state of things is, especially if you're in one of these larger markets, Chicago, New York, DC, that are seeing elevated ICE raids, that you are at potential risk of your restaurant being raided and for your immigrant workforce to be taken. And so
I think it's important to note, if we can, that we do have a timeline on our website that our colleague Joanna Fantozzi has been following in regards to that.
Yep. Go to nrn.com. We will be on top of this because, again, politics aside, the immigrant population is foundational to the success of the U.S. restaurant industry. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. 25% of our workforce being of the immigrant population. This is a very important thing to get right here. So I would also add, for those on your team who are scared, please be mindful of them. Even if they are here legally, this could be a very scary time for them. So it is important that you support them. Of course, invest in your team, take care of them, make sure they're not scared, and do what you can to work with your representatives and your associations to find the best path forward for the restaurant industry, no matter which administration is in charge. All right, Alicia, I believe that's all we have for today, but we do have one last bit we want to share with you. Recently at the National Restaurant Association show in Chicago, we were very excited to have a podcast booth set up to capture a lot of content there with the interesting people who attend that show. And I'm very excited to share the first of what will be several episodes rolling out over the next couple of months from the show. Today's episode, our managing editor, Leigh Zinsmeister, sat down with Vicki Hormann, who is the executive director of off-premises at Applebee's, to talk through some exciting announcements that they had a month ago, back when the show was happening, talking about the off-premises business at Applebee's. Alicia, a little bit about the off-premises business at Applebee's, I imagine.
They're my beat. I get paid to know a little bit. So
yep.
exciting stuff. They're doing exciting stuff. Yep.
Yeah. And in that case, we're going to be chatting with them. So we will leave it there and talk to you next week.
Do you know that 73% of customers agree that a bad restroom experience in a restaurant will impact their willingness to return? Torque Sustainable Hygiene Solutions improve operational efficiency for a better guest experience and better business.
All right, I am here at the National Restaurant Show. I'm joined today by Vicki Hormann. She is the Executive Director of Off-Premise and CRM. Do I have that right?
You do.
At Applebee's.
Correct.
Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I know that Applebee's is very focused on loyalty marketing right now for 2025, and that's obviously in your area. So give me an idea of what Applebee's goals are, and then we can dig into some of the specific campaigns that you've been doing, because I think it's really interesting.
Sure. Yeah, Applebee's loyalty program has traditionally been a very linear email marketing program. A few years ago, we rebranded it as Club Applebee's. We have over 8.5 million members, and that is growing every single day. And we look at loyalty a little bit differently than some of our peers in the industry. We really look at engagement and ways that we can bring value to our guests and ways that are non-traditional. So whether that is through partnerships or sneak peeks or exclusive offers, really finding ways to engage our guests on a personal level.
That's awesome. Some of the campaigns that you've done in the last year or two have really been different than what I've been seeing at other chains that we cover. Tell me about the date night pass, because you've done this 2 years in a row now.
We have.
And it changed a little bit from the first year to the second year. So kind of walk me through that and how that's working for you.
It did. So we started Date Night Pass in 2024. There were two things that broke the internet in 2024. There were Taylor Swift tickets and then Applebee's Date Night Pass. So we're very proud of that. So we took the learnings from 2024 and applied those learnings to 2025 and brought Date Night Pass as an exclusive perk to our Club Applebee's members. So anyone that joined or was already a member by, I believe it was February 12th, had the opportunity to be put into a lottery to purchase a Date Night Pass. We saw amazing engagement from our current Club Applebee's members, but also new guests joining Club Applebee's to take advantage of the perk.
Do you see members who get that pass, or even members who join to enter the lottery but don't get the pass? Do you see more engagement and traffic from those people who just signed up for Club Applebee's?
Absolutely. We see a very healthy mix of not only new member acquisition, but also engagement of our current Applebee's members.
And so I know the first year, it, as you said, broke the internet, sold out in less than a minute.
Seconds.
Within seconds. And then this year, you brought back the Date Night Pass. It was slightly different. You went from weekly visits to monthly visits. So
correct.
What was behind the decision to change the format?
So in 2024, the format was weekly date nights. And we found for our guests that can just be a little bit overwhelming with their busy schedules and trying to plan a date night every single week. It's just something that, I don't know about you, but for me, it would be very hard to set a date every week. So this year we moved it to monthly. We increased the value of that monthly date night and then decreased the cost of the date night pass.
So obviously Club Applebee's is really central to your loyalty approach. How has that program evolved?
Well, like I said, Club Applebee's traditionally was just this linear email. We would gather guest email addresses, send marketing messages, national promotions, some local promotions. And over the past 12 months, we've started to look at ways that we can provide benefits outside of just marketing our national promotions. So whether that's Date Night Pass, we also offered Club Applebee's members a sneak peek at our new Big Cluckin' Chicken Sandwich. Whenever that came out, those guests were able to buy that at a discount days before it actually was available in the restaurant. And then this year we also had our first ever Super Bowl sweepstakes that was only available to Club Applebee's members. So we'll continue to look at ways to provide benefit to Club Applebee's that is outside of that traditional points-based currency reward system.
Yeah. I understand that you have a big change coming to Club Applebee's, a new partnership to share with me.
We do. So we are collaborating with Wyndham Properties and the Wyndham Rewards program to offer Club Applebee's and Wyndham Rewards members mutual benefits. We're offering a new engaging digital experience to folks staying at Wyndham Properties and offering points and benefit to Club Applebee's members when they're at Wyndham, when they are a member of Wyndham Rewards. Yeah. It's something that is really a first of its kind, the first that we know of within the industry, and we're really looking forward to that collaboration.
That's great. What do those, you described it as a digital experience. Mm-hmm. What does that look like?
So for Wyndham Rewards members, they will receive free delivery whenever they are on property, as well as points through Wyndham Rewards for the Applebee's spend.
Yeah. So that's a great segue to talk about the other big part of your role, which is obviously off-premise dining. You've been working in off-premise since 2018, I believe it's been your focus?
That sounds right.
Okay, so obviously the off-premise space looks a lot different than it did in 2018. Can you talk a bit about the evolution you've seen and how you think about off-premise dining in 2025?
Absolutely. So 2018 was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
So pre-pandemic, off-premise was anywhere from 10 to 13, 14% of the industry. And then within a matter of 72 hours, as dining rooms closed, off-premise went from 13% to 86, 96%.
Wow.
Within 3 days. And that shift within the industry definitely has changed and reshaped what off-premise looks like at this point. For Applebee's, we are around 22% off-premise as a sales mix, and a very large majority of that is now digital. So I think the pandemic brought about this new digital age and this new digital tolerance within the general consumer that now is pretty much table stakes, from digital properties to online ordering, all the way down to the way that you provide convenience to your guests at pickup. And that's something that we've really embraced at Applebee's.
So how do you make sure that off-premise diners are still experiencing, like having an Applebee's experience, even if they're taking their food home or back to their hotel?
Yeah, so it's really about meeting our guests where they are from a technology standpoint. And for us, that's really around ease and convenience and personalization. So really looking at the guest from a personal lens and not just from a blanketed digital lens. So one of the things that we've implemented this year is a Google-based AI-backed recommendation engine on our website, which we actually won a CIO 100 award for this past year. But essentially, we look at the guest behavior and what they have told us as their preferences, and we make recommendations for their order tailored to their preferences. So for us, it really is about personalization and meeting the guests where they are.
That's awesome. Yeah, my next question was about personalization. So
we can talk personalization all day long. I love it. I think it's so neat.
To it. Well, what are some like trends you're seeing? Do you keep an eye on like what your competitors are doing in the space? Are you looking at things here at the restaurant show, technologies that can help you with off-prem?
Yeah, there is a lot of technology at the NRA show this year, and the new and emerging technology. We see a lot of those trends around personalization and a lot of trends around loyalty and how the two play together. And whenever we look at personalization and loyalty, I really believe that that leads to this whole idea around emotional loyalty and how we're able to personalize experiences in ways that are memorable and reliable to our guests, that get them coming back and creating that loyalty, not only year after year, but generation after generation.
Yeah, I like that. What's something about loyalty in the casual dining segment specifically that might surprise someone who's working on loyalty at like a QSR? How is it different?
I think the biggest difference between a QSR and a casual dine loyalty is just the frequency of guests. So the traditionally casual dine restaurants don't see the same type of frequency. And so creating that loyalty on something that may be a little bit more occasion-based of a visit versus more of a convenience-based visit takes a little bit more, they said, personalization, a little bit more emotional loyalty and emotional connection.
How do you balance, you know, all of the digital marketing and the technological aspects and off-premise with making sure in-restaurant consumers have, you know, an Applebee's experience? Like, how do you balance, or maybe you're only thinking about off-prem because that's your role, but...
No, I think they definitely go hand in hand. I think that the end state or the use case for a dine-in experience is definitely different from an off-premise experience. Dine-in tends to be a little bit more occasion-based. You're there to celebrate, to socialize, whereas that experience in an off-premise transaction takes place at home. So we've got to figure out ways that we can provide hospitality at home through technology, providing that ease and convenience that the guest is looking for.
How are you thinking about loyalty right now in 2025 when people are starting to pull back on spending, especially in the casual dining segment, and are like nervous about the economy? How are you thinking about that and bringing people in?
So Applebee's has a long-standing history of providing a great meal with friends, family at a value. And for us, value is at the heart of loyalty, whether that's exclusive deals, exclusive sneak peeks, but also just our everyday promotions with America's favorite boneless wings, or 2 for $25. We just provide that value that makes an easy decision whenever a guest is looking for somewhere to spend their hard-earned money. And maybe it is only once a month. And being able to provide that, we believe, brings loyalty. And again, that emotional loyalty that leads to long-lasting relationships with our guests.
What's exciting you right now about the restaurant industry?
I don't know that I've thought about that in this point in time. I think the restaurant industry is ever changing, and I love the way the industry is flexible, whether it's with economic conditions, whether it's new technology, whether it's the ever-changing needs of our guests. We always find a way to meet those needs and to go above and beyond. And I think that is so apparent here. Again, whenever you walk around and you see some of these vendors and the way that they're thinking about providing experiences through technology, it's exciting to see.
Yeah. Last question. What's your favorite thing on the Applebee's menu?
Oh, chicken fajita roll-up.
All right.
To go, though. Always has to be to go.
Everyone I ask that question of has an answer at the tip of their tongue.
Absolutely. Well, can I throw it back at you? Do you have a favorite item?
I haven't been to an Applebee's in so long, which is so embarrassing. I know. I like the classics, like boneless wings, chicken tenders, like a really good cheeseburger.
There you go. We have a whole lot of bacon burger on the menu that is to die for. You'll have to try it.
That's what I'll look for next
Perfect.
time. All right. Thank you for your time today, Vicki.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Do you know that 73% of customers agree that a bad restroom experience in a restaurant will impact their willingness to return? Torque Sustainable Hygiene Solutions improve operational efficiency for a better guest experience and better business.